Our viewers should know that we keep time.
Yes, that's very important.
Yeah.
All right, Srishti.
So, Dr. Julian, the floor is yours. You can go ahead and start us off.
Okay, fantastic. First, to really say a big thank you to Sriti Asidani for gracing her with our presence again. This is the second time we are meeting. The first time I had a blast. It was so much fun. I'm looking to so much more fun today. So very much welcome, Phil. Welcome, Sritsi. It's supposed to be a very engaging conversation. Uh, any signs of discomfort with any direction of my questions, feel free to let me know. We're just supposed to learn and have all the fun that we can. But before we start, I want to say welcome. And in Nairobi, we say karibu, and then you say asante sana.
Thank you, Dr. Julian. It's a pleasure to speak with you again, and a lot of engaging content and a lot of awareness you're bringing for the youth. And I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. Looking
Much,
forward.
much appreciated. Paul, I'll hand on the mic to you. Very quickly, tell us about ABYA and what we're trying to do.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Julian. My name is Paul Makolaka, co-founder and executive director of Africa Blockchain Youth Ambassadors, or ABYA. ABYA is a Pan-African initiative created to promote literacy and adoption of blockchain, Web3, and cryptocurrency in Africa through awareness, knowledge, skills, and application among university students. The reason why we focus on the youth is informed by the fact that Africa's youth make up a significant proportion of the population, but they are often left out of the formal economy and lack access to opportunities. This lack of access prevents them from thriving, resulting in high levels of unemployment and poverty, as well as social and political marginalization. And as a result, Africa cannot reach its full potential. The youth are the future leaders of the continent, and if given the opportunity, they have the potential to become change makers. By investing in Africa's youth with future-proof skills, networking opportunities, and other programs, we are not only empowering individuals, but also benefiting society as a whole. These young people have the potential to make a real difference in the world, and we are proud to be supporting them on their journey. Back to you, Dr. Julian.
Very well put, and thank you so much, Paul. I am your host. My name is Dr. Julian Roa. I am the Director of Strategy and Quality Assurance at African Blockchain Youth Ambassadors, also known as ABYA. I am a scholar practitioner. I enjoy bridging the gap between theory and practice. Just earned my doctorate 2 years ago from the University of Liverpool. I enjoy very intense conversations, and I love the conversational intellect around them. I'm an enthusiast of blockchain technology, and I also wear the hat of the Chief Executive Officer of Schedules Business Management Consulting, an outfit that intervenes in workplace-based problems. Today, we have the pleasure with us of having Sritsi Asidani discussing the subject of non-fungible token, NFTs, gaming, metaverse, and digital reality. You'll see from the right, we would like to engage you as well as our audience listening to this conversation. You may have comments, you may have questions that you want to throw at Sritsi. Feel free to post them on the right-hand corner, and time allowing, we'll engage her on the same. I would like first to start by introducing our guest by reading a short bio. Sriti Sudani, where are you calling from before I proceed?
I'm in India, in Delhi.
Okay, calling all the way from India, Delhi. Sriti is a dynamic professional with 16 plus years of experience in technology sales, project delivery, and solutions engineering. She's a director at Settlement Company, where she helps enterprises in delivering DLT, decentralized ledger technology applications across multi-sectors industries. She has deep functional expertise in blockchain distributed ledger platforms like Hyperledger, Permission BC, and Corda, Permission BC. Now, Sritsi, before we go into the questions, I'm giving you 2 minutes if there's any other comment you'd like to make before we start the conversation.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, Paul, for first inviting me. And I'm honored to be again on this session. And I would just like to mention here that we would definitely, as industry peers, would want to advocate this technology so that the youth can start exploring avenues for their careers, especially in the blockchain technology. And that's my prime reason for engagement with ABYA Youth. So yeah, that's what I would like to add. And apart from my professional engagement with settlement, most of the voluntary work which I do is more for the adoption and contribution to the society.
And we thank you again for obliging us with your time. So let's get into the conversation of the day.
Yeah.
You may have told us this before the first time we met, but I'll ask you again. What is settlement and what do you do at settlement?
Um, so, Dr. Julian, I mean, when we talk about it, we've had so many conversations about blockchain technology, but enterprises have been struggling to actually build potential business cases, new business models on the technology, struggling with challenges of resources, with maintaining scalable environments, and of course, the infrastructure cost, because blockchain as a technology is very, very complex, and the infrastructure cost would be high. So, as a company settlement, we have focused on developing our offerings on that, where we are trying to simplify the journey for the enterprises with a low code platform. And essentially, what we provide our clients is a middleware which would help you build your day apps, decentralized applications for use cases across multi sectors, like supply chain, logistics, banking, financial services sectors, public sector. There's a lot of good work happening in the public sector, also in the NGO sectors. So we have a low code platform which is essentially having a tools with different service offerings available, which would make it easy for anybody to develop the applications. If I go a little more technical, for example, while you're setting up an blockchain application, the first part would definitely be the infrastructure. So the setting up of the infrastructure, or we give a choice of multi chains, whether you want to develop on a permission network, a DLT network, or public blockchains like Avalanche, Polygon, Ethereum. And then, of course, you can build your smart contract logics and integrate with different applications, maintain the key management, storage, and any other off-chain databases. All those are provided out of the box in the platform. So that's what we do with settlement. And in the last five, we started a journey in 2016. We've been able to successfully deliver over 50 plus deployments globally across use cases, supply chain traceability use cases, cross-border settlements, trade finance use cases, uh, boarding use cases. Yeah.
Great. And to what extent are you in Africa?
We are having a regional office based out of Dubai, which takes care of MIA, and we are actively engaged with a lot of organizations. Don't have much details because my colleague is actually working over there.
Okay.
But we've recently also engaging with this with Nigeria, with one of the central banks, where we are doing some great work with them, where they're leveraging the platform for use case developments in KYC, in a consortium of banks for asset tokenization, just a few of the use cases which they are exploring.
Fantastic. Now, Sritsi, you recently had an engaging conversation with Center for Communication Governance. I'm sure you can remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
The Australian National University Tech Policy Design Center.
Hmm. Hmm.
From the highlights of that event,
Mhm.
how do you develop strong collaborations between researchers, businesses, and government around standards? Standards is going to be a big issue when we are moving or evolving into the new world. So my question is, how do you develop those strong collaborations between researchers, business, and governments?
Uh, so, two parts of your question, Dr. Julian. One is that more of the context of the conversation which we had with Tech Policy Design Center and the Australian High Commission, and more of the framework for the collaboration, which is a challenge where a lot of organizations are trying to, bridge the gap. With in specific to the conference, this was more of an engaging conversation between industry peers, PhD scholars, academicians, and researchers on potential use cases identified by the Australian High Commission. And also discussions on what frameworks need to be discussed, and how do we, go ahead with all the potential use cases. So there have been discussions for engagement in the agricultural sector, in the insurance sector, and also for some public sector use cases, specifically in the healthcare. This is more from the context of the discussion which we had with Tech Policy Design Center. And of course, as a technical implementation partner, we are engaging with the Australian High Commission as well as government authority bodies. So there is CDAC in India, which are doing some great work, and there are other center of excellences where we'll be contributing and helping them in the application development. More from the frameworks, I think there's a lot of work which is happening in the policy side. We as industry peers actually are involved more from the solutioning side to evaluate the architectures of any use case, identifying the potential fit, and also from the scalability perspective. But as a part of the voluntary work which I'm doing with one of the international organizations, I'm also part of International Token Student Standard Association, where we are working and contributing as industry peers to enable token standards. So we are aware that DeFi is a very strong market where we are trying to remove the intermediaries and building different apps for it's a complete different sector in parallel to the traditional banking, right? For the lending as well as DEXs, central exchanges. So enabling a token standard for the different applications is what we're working on.
Great. Now, my experience, and it's not a long experience. It's a very short experience, and I know for many of us, the audience here, it's a very short experience. That's why we are trying to learn. When we talk about DLTs and blockchain, there's so many moving parts. So many moving parts. Sometimes every other day we get something new, and you're wondering how then do you plug this into the whole? So there's so many moving parts, and I've gotten to the place where I'm beginning to think we have situations where the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. So, as an expert in this field and with your long years of experience, how do we get to a place of convergence, where we have one way of seeing one version of the truth, or will that even be possible?
Uh, so, from a one lens, yes, of course, that's the goal. Because when we say that, when we started developing the internet, there were different versions of internet being developed, but ultimately there are certain different protocols that we are following, and applications are being built on that. So the larger vision is, of course, that the Web 3.0, as we call it, should have one internet, but that's a long standing, and that's very promising as of now, to see that would happen or not. But in lieu of that, there's a lot of work which is happening on the interoperability part, just to ensure that there is streamline movement and cross-chain communication in a very seamless manner happening between protocols, between applications, so that there is no hindrance to the end customer or to the businesses who are developing the new business models on this. So that's more from the perspective of when we say that, the interoperability and a single internet, single version of truth. But again, here, when we say so many DLTs are coming, what we also need to understand that a DLT in itself, this is again, I'm going more from an opinion standpoint, from a technical perspective, is the fact that there are some inherent capabilities of a DLT or a blockchain, right? Which is essentially maintaining the auditability in the transaction recording in a secure manner. Now, there can be different versions of people to configure how the validation needs to happen, how the chain needs to be forked, and that's why we have different consensus mechanisms in place. And that's the evolution of different chains, different DLTs coming. With different names, of consensus mechanism, some having aspects of sustainability to them. So this is, you need to understand, and that's the beauty of it, which keeps me engrossed in this, that it's the composable nature of the technology, that you can actually build custom build solutions and applications which would be pertinent to your requirements.
Amazing. Paul,
Yes.
are we squeezing juice from Srishti the way we should? I'm thinking she's really giving us interesting data.
Yes, I
Thank you.
think she is. And
Yeah,
just
go
one
ahead.
on the last statement that she made,
Yeah.
which was, the capability of, being able to, that composability from, different perspective, whether you are whichever, consensus mechanism you are using, or whichever platform you are using, that just brings in the fact that, the fact that, for example, there's this saying, they say that variety is the source for life. So for me, I think, that is really bringing this out alive, that statement that,
Amazing.
variety is the source for life. So, and that is very
Amazing.
important, to have different, different varieties.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, Srishti, I'll still stick to the Australian event and ask you one more question. It speaks of, or rather, it spoke of how we should leverage on blockchain and DLTs for public sector and enterprises. How, so as a question, and by way of trying to get a recommendation from you, how do we then leverage blockchains and DLTs for public sector and enterprises? How do we do that? What should we be looking at?
So there are two aspects of it. One is, when does blockchain as a technology make sense
Yeah.
as a to provide a solution to a problem, because we do not want to use something only because there is a buzz about it and everybody's talking about it. It should actually solve a problem, and it should streamline efficiencies or result in revenue benefits for the customer. So there is, of course, a framework which we have, which would assess whether a potential problem would be a right business case for a blockchain backend, essentially, because blockchain is essentially the backend where you're recording the transactions. Where in a sense, on a very like on a highlight, it would be either, are we trying to achieve efficiencies by removing frictions? Are we trying to remove intermediaries? uh, are we trying to enable a marketplace where we are trying to curate new revenue streams? So these or are we trying to do provenance of any kind of material or any kind of asset? So these are certain areas where we kind of screen down irrespective of the sector, whether blockchain makes a set. Now, when we talk about enterprises, of course, supply chain has a lot of data silos, right? So a traceability between the ecosystems is a very good use case. There are issues of reconciliations happening when in the downstream, there is a plethora of partners which are there, and there are a lot of reconciliation issues. There are freight forwards happening. There's a lot of there's no transparency. So if we have an ecosystem where all the partners are in sync, and privacy is maintained and it's secure, so that's when a blockchain makes sense in enterprises. When we talk about supply chain, similar to logistics, right, when we have multiple participants, and why blockchain would be beneficial and not any other distributed tech is because of the nature of the technology. Since it's peer to peer, right, uh, it's scalable, it would be cost efficient rather than mapping APIs across different participants. Blockchain would make sense whenever there is multi-participant ecosystem. And that's one aspect of it, which can be linked to banking, which can be linked to logistics, supply chain, pharma sector. But the other aspect is removing intermediaries when you're transferring assets or you're transferring value, which is the beauty of blockchain, right? Where you can transfer money over the internet. So that's the other use case. And third is, of course, marketplaces, right? You're seeing NFTs being minted, of new form of uh, assets, right? Digital assets, stable coins. Now CBDCs are going to come. So all these assets are having a new ecosystem, monetary ecosystem is being developed. So you can have marketplaces, and you can use these token economies, and all that can be done. So lot to speak to, but yeah, in short.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is really, really, really elucidating. That's really bringing clarity to some of the things that we still struggle with in terms of understanding how we need to proceed or where we actually need to start. I think that was very, very well put. Excellent. So now we've painted a picture. I wanted to get that out of the way first. And then we get to this very complicated aspects of there's certain, like I talked about, moving parts. There are all these sophisticated concepts and devices that are coming up. We speak of non-fungible tokens, NFTs. We talk of gaming. Gaming is becoming a huge thing now within this space. There's metaverse, where again we are talking about a different, an alternate virtual reality space. Then there's also what we call the digital reality. And all this is causing a lot of anxiety and confusion. But I'll focus my question first on one, and back to the topic of the day. Tell us about gaming and what makes it exciting in these times. Tell us about gaming and what makes it exciting these times, relative to blockchain and everything else we're discussing.
Right. So I think gaming has been a very active sector, irrespective of blockchain. But blockchain has brought a new power to the retail users, or the people who are avid in the game, by empowering them with ownership. So there's of course a motivation of people playing games where they try to accrue points, and buy different assets. But how about putting an ownership into it? How about adding a value to it, and then being able to trade in a transparent way? So that is what a blockchain actually revolutionizes the gaming. So while you're involved, you can also monetize, you can own, and the assets can be traded. Uh, the value can be increased depending upon, because this is all social status, right, linked to social status. So it can be increased depending upon the perceived value which the asset has. And that's a new form of asset altogether.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Paul, I also wanted to pick your thought on that, because when you think about gaming, the first thing that comes to your mind is it's a luxurious, relaxing kind of activity. But the way Swiss is positioning it now, it could become a key component or pillar, to economic development and growth, whichever way you look at it. What's your take on gaming? Because this is something so new, and some of us are beginning to appreciate it now when we listen to experts like Swiss here. But I'd like to hear your reaction very quickly, Paul.
Yeah, so of course, as Srithi has already pointed out, gaming has been here, way before concept of blockchain. But what blockchain has done is like to put gaming on steroids, so that it has just taken another turn, another momentum that has not been seen before. And then the other thing that probably now it's doing is that, for example, you know, uh, like for example, if you are a parent, and in those days you'd be like, why would you, like when you are speaking probably to your kids, you'd be like, why would you spend X amount of time just playing games? But you see now, today, that has totally changed, whereby, for example, you play to earn, so that, something that was seen a few years ago, like in a negative light, that it was just wasting time, wasting resources in form of the energy that is consumed and all that. But now it has taken a different twist, whereby that is not the story anymore. So, and then the other, of course, the other flip side to that is, in the past, before this era, gamers used to play, for fun. But now this is now a different twist, whereby it becomes some sort of, like an economic activity. So that's a very different, a very different twist to it. So even now the gamers are like, um, this is a new concept which has invaded our space, and now it has given it a different a different twist, a different meaning. So how do they, so it even now makes it very different for them, the way they see it, because now they see it very differently, because in those days they used to play it for fun. But now you have put economic aspects of it.
That's
Thank
right.
you,
That's
Paul.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Suthi.
No, I think that's beautifully put, Paul. And with the alignment of economic incentives, of course, as a parent, I do feel that there is a kind of constraint which
Yeah.
I would have, but yes, the economic incentive has actually gained has invited mass adoption to this, and people who are actually crypto native, they are actually yielding returns which we cannot imagine to, right? There are returns to the tune of 100%, 1000% also at times, by involving in staking activities, which would be associated with games like this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that addition. So let's look at NFTs, another very interesting concept that we're having to deal with today. NFTs constantly reminds me of the two different worlds that we're experiencing now, part of which is already, we think it is virtual and it's coming, but I'm told it's already operational. Blockchain is a big space for NFTs. And then we still have the physical in-person, what do you call it, space as we know it. So my question to you is, we will still see a coexistence of the two worlds for the foreseeable future. But I'm struggling to understand when something happens within the blockchain space, and for lack of a better word, I'll say the virtual space within the confines of NFTs. How do I then use that or bring that into real life, into the in-person real life day-to-day activities? I'm just trying to see whether there's a way the two worlds are merged so much so that what happens in the cyberspace can actually transition into the in-person world. I don't know, Sritsi, am I asking a legitimate question here? I'm just asking how that does transition happen from this to that? I want value in my hands. It is sitting somewhere in a blockchain space. And I'm looking at NFTs in this particular example. How does that transition into the real world?
So in a very layman word, what we need to understand, and an NFT is, in very simple terms, giving you an ownership, which
Okay.
can be associated with any kind of asset. It can be a currency. It can be a car, it can be anything, it can be a real world asset. So what it does is it associates an ownership and can also associate a value. So that's what an NFT is. And there are different standards and specifications available where we are able to configure this and use this in different use cases. Now when you talk about the virtual space, where you talk about metaverse, of course, that's an area where NFTs are being utilized, in the form of trading of real world assets or gaming assets, per se. But in other areas also, NFTs are revolutionizing or disrupting sectors. Specifically, a lot of work is being done in the art sector, right? Because
Yes.
where the artists are having, they are struggling with ownership, digital rights. They're able to create a digital twin of their asset and essentially enable that and mark the trade. Also curate a history of the asset, create add additional value to the asset. So this is of course one area where NFT is being utilized. It's being utilized extensively in the games, like what we discussed, in the metaverse for sure. It's being utilized for loyalty reward systems to talk to end consumers, like what you're saying. So um, would not be able to reveal the name right now, but we are working with one of the leading beverage companies where we have associated NFTs to link loyalty rewards for the end customers. And that's actually solving a real business problem, because the underlying business, the process is such that it would be helping in tracing the recycling of the bottles. It's linked to that. So you can actually curate problem statements into solution, uh, and solve different areas like this. So that's another area that, NFTs are revolutionizing and disrupting sectors. And then of course there is also utilities which are associated with NFTs. So these are
Okay.
some of the use cases where NFTs are finding way, and it's coming to the end customers. Apart from the fact that you also have those cryptocurrencies and the different NFT collections which are available, which are you can trade them on OpenSea or Rarible. So that's another sector where for the millennials gaining their social status through NFTs. But there are also enterprise applications utilizing these NFTs.
Fantastic. Very, very good response. So, Paul, I'm also bouncing off this question to you.
Yes.
I have this token in my blockchain space or whatever you want to call it. But now I want to have physical whatever to it. I want it tangible. I want to be able to use it in the real world. How does that transition in your view? Srisi has done a very good job of explaining it, but I also want to pick your thought on that.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I would like to say is that with NFTs in the last, I would say, like especially last year and last year but one, it really picked momentum. And the hype helped to bring it on the limelight. And I think that now from early next year, I think we should now start seeing a lot of utility use cases of NFTs. And I'd just like to mention a few examples. Like, for example, in educational sector, we've had a lot of challenge whereby, being able to verify certificates. Yeah. Or, just to establish whether, somebody actually went to that school, whether that certificate is genuine or not. So that is one area that actually NFTs can shine.
Okay.
Because now this actually now takes full advantage of capabilities of an NFT, that being able not to have two identical copies of that same item. So I think that can really has a lot of, it can be a game changer in the education sector. because we've had a lot of issues, and more recently, I think we all know what happened in Kenya just before elections. There was a big issue whereby a candidate was vying, and there was a lot of back and forth, whether this person, the certificate that they presented was authentic or not. But you see, if we had it in something like an NFT, and it's something that is out there, then there's no way that, for example, if this institution issued that certificate, there's no way that they can go back to it and say that this is not our document, that this is not our certificate, because it is out there in the public domain and you can't change it. So that is one use case that really NFTs can shine. And then the other thing that, just to add on what Srishti mentioned earlier about the art. Now, we all know that the art sector, or that space, has been like an exclusive club of the rich. Yeah. And so what NFT has done, it has just opened this space for anyone. Yeah. It has brought down all the barriers that were there, because we know that, for example, we used to hear of art auctions. These were places not just for anyone. It was an exclusive club. And we all know that, the kind of auction that used to happen there, a lot of money. So, for example, if you are just a small-time art collector, or an artist, or someone who is just trying to, to get yourself into the space, without a name, without, some kind of, a lot of money, you could not get into this space. But you see now what this has done is, number one, any artist, you can actually do your art, register it as an NFT, put it out there without, without having to go through these bureaucracies that used to be there. And that can be a game changer, because you see, here we are talking about a situation whereby, for example, if you get someone from the remotest part of, let's say, for example, Kenya, and they are skilled in drawing, they have that natural talent of putting up very nice artwork. So you can imagine if they can just get a little help in terms of creating an NFT, which today is it's not an expensive exercise, yeah, and then it gets out there, and before you know it, it could even go for $1 million. That is something that we've never seen it before, just from nowhere. And then also what that does is that, for example, it has brought in the issue of fractional ownership. In that, for example, you can imagine the painting of Mona Lisa. If, for example, it goes for 100 million, yeah? Now, NFT now enables, I can own a piece of that. I don't have to own that entire artwork. I can just own a piece of it, probably even for 100,000 Kenya shillings. And you see, what that does again, it has another ripple effect. There's something we call liquidity. So what that means is that, for example, initially, when an artwork went for 100 million, if you want to sell it, you have to find a buyer who will buy that entire piece in whole. But now here we have a situation whereby I can own a piece of it. And that piece of it, if I want to dispose it, I can just do it, within a very short time. I don't have to sell the entire thing. So we are having a liquidity in the market, something that we've never experienced before. So these are some of the new things that that NFTs are bringing. And just the last point before I hand back over to you, Dr. Julian. We have this industry, the entertainment industry. And for example, in the traditional way, you buy a ticket and then, you wait for the game. and then something can happen. Yeah, you can have an emergency, and you can't attend the event. So what happens to the ticket? That's a waste. Yeah, but now with NFTs, for example, you can. We are now being provided with an opportunity to actually now be able to trade these tickets on a secondary market. And these are things that only used to happen in the financial markets. But now these are now practical utility cases that we are seeing in industries where this never used to exist. So that, for example, if I had bought a ticket, 2 months ago, and on that date I can't attend, I can easily sell it on a secondary market, and yeah. So back to you, Dr. Julian.
Thank you very much, Paul. I mean, both parts of the arguments have been very enlightening. We are seeing the space of NFTs in this new world. When you talk about owning part of a token, and then I'm thinking, well, I've sold it. How does the entire proceeds mechanism work out? How does it end up in my hands or in my pockets? But I guess those are some of the things that we'll be learning as we go along. But you've done a fantastic job of explaining this to us. Before I go back to Street C, because I have a couple of other exciting questions for you, very quickly, a message from our sponsors, and then we can proceed.
Oh, sorry. My internet is a bit
Enterprise blockchains have limitless potential, but privacy is a major challenge. How can businesses secure their private transactions on a public network, especially when enterprise blockchains have been closed, unaudited, centralized? Introducing Polygon Nightfall, designed for the needs of enterprises. Nightfall uses a hybrid approach to scaling to give enterprises an option that was considered impossible. ZK rollups keep transactions private on a public network. Optimistic rollups offer efficient, scalable transactions. Secured by Ethereum, Nightfall means trust, transparency, and credibility. Aiming to disrupt the $50 trillion global supply chain industry, Polygon Nightfall unlocks the true potential of enterprise blockchains and empowers businesses to connect and scale in powerful new ways. Polygon Nightfall. Mainnet beta is now live.
I can proceed, or you want to make a comment?
Yeah. I'll just add, Paul, was that for you?
No, you can add something, Struthi, if you want to add something.
Yeah. I'll just add to, what Paul was mentioning. Lovely use cases he cited to explain to our viewers in a very simple way. But again, from one of our interactions, even the titling of land deeds, which is actually in Africa, in some areas, that's a big hassle, and the ownership is again a problem. So even that is a very good use case where NFTs can be utilized, and the ownership can be established, and with the deed being digitally signed on the blockchain, and right, and the all the other consortium partners also there, whether with the regulators and the government authorities. So that's also another very good use case, which we have, which we're getting a lot of discussions from our clients in Africa.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Now, NFTs, gaming, metaverse, digital reality, as good as they are, they come with their own risks. Brings in the question of conflict between innovation and regulation. Now, in your mind, Srishti, how will this space, which is becoming so complex, be governed in your own thinking? This space that is becoming so complicated, how will we govern it?
So I think, Julian, of course, the digital asset economy is touted to be a $1 billion economy, whether it comes from the assets, which can be the NFTs or the stable coins, or now governments are also working towards uh, establishing their own digital currencies. So, of course, while we do understand that this is huge innovation which will have potential benefits, uh, but of course there are challenges which we are facing in the industry with respect to regulations, with respect to support from the government also, because these are real assets, right? So with respect to legal considerations involved, with respect to tax authorities, these are certain frameworks which are there's a lot of work which needs to be done in the policy side on this. Of course, we are aware that there's a lot of movement and adoption in US, and Crypto Council is also working on this, and SEC has been moved, and we have now authority which would be governing the digital asset uh, the frameworks for establishing how the ownership needs to be done in the right legal way. But still, we have a long way with respect to working on these in other countries, especially developing countries, and even developed countries. I think there's a lot of work which needs to be done in this, because we are also seeing that there is some work which is happening which would not be uh, for some terror work is also happening on the blockchain because of the anonymity that blockchain brings. So there's a lot of responsibility which also comes to the government, and this is also coming from a lot of interactions which we're having with the Indian government, because there's a resistance to mass adoption of this, and the digital asset establishment of the digital asset frameworks. So I think these are certain areas where we are all working towards, and of course, again, establishing standards and frameworks. So if we are able to have global standards which can be adhered while we are trying to develop these um, applications, whether these are tokens or any kind of assets being engaged, which would be international standards that application providers can follow. That would be a huge help, because right now we are uh, there are very little formats or frameworks that we can follow to or look up to. So I think these are areas where there's a lot of policy work that needs to be done. But I think somewhere around 3 to 5 years is when we'll actually have some tangible work on that. That's what my feeling is, especially for India. But I think, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me push the question a little further. Srithi,
Hmm.
an online universe is emerging. I picked this up from a certain journal. An online universe is emerging with Fortnite and Roblox currently attracting nearly 400 million users. Online, an online universe with almost 400 million users. What does this say? Should we be afraid? Srithi, that's my question to you.
So I think, Dr. Julian, here this is an evolvement. This is an evolving world which we are in right now. There has been a movement where now we are addicted as a normal routine to interact socially through digital realms like Zoom. We are having interactions, and we are sending legal documents through emails. So this was an era 10 years back which was unimaginable, 10 to
Yeah.
15 years back.
Mm,
But we are at a juncture right now where we are trying to bring this further, while trying to add certain aspects of being immersive in the digital realm, being able to interoperate in the digital realm, being able to experience things while we are trying to interact in the digital reality. Because essentially we do realize that we are as citizens or professionals spending a lot of our significant time digitally. So this is an inevitable change which would be seen in the coming years. So and when we talk about the gaming app, the metaverse apps, which you're saying that there are 400 million users. With respect to safety concern, yes, there is a concern because of the kind of engagement we are having in the metaverse realm. But I think this is revolutionizing the experience with respect to users. Just to give me a simple example, like we were if we talk about a banking sector, right? We were accustomed to go to a bank, have a passbook, and withdraw cash, and sign a check as an instrument.
Yeah.
These are things which are not done on a day-to-day basis. We are using our phones, we are using the app, we have access to information on the internet of the services. But how about creating an immersive experience to that? How about talking to your bank in a metaverse? You have your manager, you go in an avatar, and you actually experience that, okay, today I'm at Citibank. I'm a user of Citibank, and Citibank also has a digital asset custody sector, which I was not aware, because I don't have to go to the website and read. I can actually experience this. I can go to the booths. I can see the kind of work. I can interact with an individual. I can have transactions, and that would stay more. It's the visual part which stays. It's the interaction. It's going to be something like I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm able to talk to my bank manager, or the Spock, and talk about home loans, and talk about agreements, and that might be digitized. I might be using a Citibank token to pay, and to do. I'd be accumulating loyalty rewards through the token, using different services, paying for credit cards. This is unimaginable right now, but there's a lot of work going on in the sector, and this is how this would be extended in different areas. This is just one part when we talk about banking, but even in the supply chain, right? If I'm able to actually see, when we are getting so concerned about our health, mental health, physical health, there's a lot of fitness things. So there's a lot of work happening on nutrition, on the authenticity of the sourcing of materials. What if I can actually have an insight to it? I can have more information, I can be a more informed customer. And this something is unimaginable right now. But what if Nestle opens a metaverse and I can actually see their plant? I can have insight into the credentials, I can have insight into a lot of other things which will make me a more loyal customer.
Amazing. But I'll still push it. Seriously, I'll still push it a little bit. I'm 54.
Mm-hmm.
While you are my good friend is 22. From what you have just described, can we both really be excited about this? Or should we be anxious about it? What are your thoughts about it? Because there's going to be an intergenerational conflict here.
I would not agree to this. More so, not from the fact that I'm so deep into the technology and I advocate it, but more from a generic standpoint, where we have actually seen our parents adopt to social logins like Instagram and Facebook. And there are times that I get to know what my mother is doing through Facebook. So that's something which was unimaginable. So I think it would just be a transition, what would happen gradually while we're trying to build these applications. I think even if something actually has value, people adopt it irrespective of the age, whether it's a 54-year-old or it's an 80-year-old. If I can actually add inherent value, and there's a perceived value associated, I think user adoption is going to happen. It's unavoidable.
Amazing. I'm comforted. Paul, I'm comforted here.
I can see that.
Uh, Coming almost towards the end of our conversation today, still tackling the questions of NFTs, gaming, metaverse, and digital reality. Another writer has said this gives us a platform for entrepreneurship. This gives us a platform for convenience. This gives us a platform for escape. Seriously, a platform for escape. Please comment.
I'm not able to get what you want to ask. Platform for escape, how would that be related?
Let me repeat this.
Mm,
NFTs gaming. Think about
mhm,
gaming to my
mhm,
question. Metaverse. Think about
mhm,
metaverse to my question. And digital reality. There's a
mm,
writer who has said those concepts provide a platform where three things happen.
mm.
One of those is entrepreneurship. Another of those is convenience, facilitation of convenience. And the other thing, the third thing he's given is escape. The writer is trying to say gaming and metaverse, for example, gives us a route to escape. And I'm just asking, this is a very, very easy, casual question. What would be your reaction to that be, especially where escape is concerned? And Paul, I'd like to hear your reaction to that as well. Escape when you're thinking about metaverse, escape when you're thinking about gaming. But first, let me hear from our key speaker. Do you agree? You're free not to agree.
Yeah, I'm kind of I mean astonished with the thought. That
Okay.
that would be the first thing. But when we say escape, it's a very negative word for me actually.
Uh-huh.
So escape actually means that uh, we are trying to run away from something.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that's a negative thought for me. But when we it's a little difficult for me to comment, but
Okay, I
uh,
grant you that. I grant you that. So I want to push the same question to Paul. This is just a writer. I think it's an academic writer. Think about escape. Do you agree with him, Paul? Or do you not agree with him? I'm imagining a
Well,
metaverse world.
for me, I would say yes and no, because I don't know exactly in what context he said that, that escape. But for me, for example, let me just give an example. Let's say in medicine, yeah, where, for example, you have this, let's say in in elderly homes, yeah,
Yeah.
where, for example, you'd imagine a scenario where, for example, through the metaverse, you'd enable, let's say, this elderly to have an experience, a kind of a different experience that probably they would not be able to get it, like physically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, would you consider that an escape, or, I don't know.
Well, it's a good question to ponder. I guess we will leave that to the academics to
Yes.
interrogate it further. Yeah, but I
Yes.
just thought it was a good thing, Sriti, to just put it out there and just to hear what you have to say about it. My
what
last
I
question.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead, Sriti.
Let's
Go
let's
ahead.
go to the next question. Yeah, let's go to the next question. I just wanted to say, I mean, what I get, maybe, not perceiving it as a negative thing, and just to think about it, it might be the escape can be, in a way to kind of envision anonymous interactions.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that might be a thought, but that's
Uh-huh.
just a vague thing which I can get
Okay.
from
Okay.
it. But yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. My second last question to you, Sriti. What did COVID teach us about digital interaction, if anything?
I think COVID has taught us a lot.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think it has taught us many things actually. We've
Yeah.
been able to move to a different realm of working from home.
Yeah.
We've been able to get a lot of audience When I say audience, it can be citizens, it can be enterprise users, it can be governments, to the digital sector, right? And I'm talking about my country for per se, where the high bureaucrats, officials would always prefer a in-person meeting, but there has been a movement of realization of things happening in the digital space, of virtual meetings happening, and the kind of value associated with an in-person is synonymous with a web meeting now, which was not the case. We have closed deals on virtually through interactions and across. Of course, that might be happening pre-COVID, but it's kind of amplified multifold after COVID. So I think that's very important thing. But leave apart from the blockchain technology perspective, otherwise also in developing countries, and I would like to comment about my country, but even you have the areas, rural areas, where people have adopted to the technology because of the COVID, and they have realized the importance of interaction. So digital has been, of course, very digital adoption has been very uh, accelerated because of the COVID, apart from other facts that people have realized the value of life, and the other things which have come with COVID. But yes.
Oh, amazing, amazing. My final question to you: you've given us a ton of knowledge this evening. I've personally taken away a lot of valuable lessons. If you are to advise us, those of us that are listening, who want to advance our knowledge in the space of NFTs, gaming, metaverse, and digital reality, where would you direct us? What is your recommendation? How can we enhance our knowledge just to get to the level you are at, or if not, or near your level, if not get to your level? What would you recommend for us?
I think my recommendation would first be to be a user of these assets. If you talk about the NFT or gaming or even metaverse, because experience is something which would actually help you understand what is actually happening in rather than reading documents. Of course, that's also important, and that needs to be also understood. If you want to be an expert in this field, you want to understand architecture designs, you want to understand the frameworks, how this has been put into place. But that's a completely different thing. It's not required for not for everyone to be techie to understand this. So that's why you, as a user, you need to understand the value of this, and you can actually envision how you can create different models from this. Leave apart the technology to experts or companies like us to help, which will help you. But you need to understand where the technology is actually helping, and when you understand the crux of it or the basics of it, there is no end to problems being solved with NFTs, or new games being developed, or virtual experiences being built. It's just that for me, what I would suggest to anybody seeing is that understand the real value, experience it, and then try to accustom
Okay.
to what can be achieved.
Fantastic. I
Thank
am
you.
very excited. I'm very happy, Srishti. This has been quite an experience for me. On my own behalf, the audience, the people listening, and those that will see this video in the coming days, I would really want to thank you for being so selfless as to share your knowledge so selflessly. This has been so deep for many of us, me particularly. I would like to take this opportunity to invite Paul to make his final remarks. And to you, I hope to talk sometimes again soon. Thank you very much, Sweetie.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Julian. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, let me take this time to appreciate Dr. Julian for really doing what you do best, moderating this, and being able to bring out all the juices, all the information that, yes. So we really appreciate that, Dr. Julian. And also our speaker, Asudani. It has been a pleasure. You've now become a common figure on this platform. We really appreciate you. that knowledge that you keep on sharing with us. And I'm sure our viewers have really enjoyed this session. We look forward to more sessions in future. And also to our viewers, we appreciate you taking time to being part of this online live discussion. We really appreciate you. May you all have a good night, good morning, a good afternoon, depending on where you're calling from. Until we meet next time again. Shalom.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
Paul. Bye, Ashudani.
Bye. Thank you.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.